So I didn't expect to do any compilation albums in this little mini-series until I came across this one in one of my record boxes, and I thought, I can't not talk about this because this is such... It's easily the best compilation album I've ever bought by anybody. And it's this. Motorhead, No Remorse, from 1984. And this one is the original one that came out in the Smell the Glove leather sleeve, as I think Lemmy used to call it. You've got the title on the back there. So, as I said, the reason I couldn't ignore this one is because the track listing is so good, and it also represents the end of an era, because it's the end of Motorhead's time with Bronze Records. So it's a look back at their early career. It really is a true anthology in that respect. And for songs, obviously the usual suspects we have on here, we have Motorhead, a great live version of that, Ace of Spades, Bomber, Metropolis, Overkill. The only one that's missing on this, there are also 4 new songs on here which I'll get into in a minute. The only one that's missing, which I think would have made this absolutely perfect, because as I said, nothing is perfect in previous episodes. I'd love to have heard The Chase is Better Than the Catch on here. I think that would have made it tip top, but you know, it's not far away from tip top as it is. Now, the 4 new songs were recorded by the brand new Motorhead lineup from 1984 of Lemmy, Wurzel, Phil Campbell and Pete Gill of Saxon on drums. So we went from Saxon to Motorhead. And the songs are Kill by Death, the crazy Kill by Death, Steal Your Face, which is fantastic, Snaggletooth, which again is fantastic, and Locomotive, which is the final song on the whole record. Side 4, final song, Locomotive. That's 200 BPM. So that tells you the insanity of that song. It really is crazy. So this came out just after the Another Perfect Day record, and that lineup of Lemmy, Brian Robertson and Filthy Animal Taylor on drums, they finished touring that record, and then that was all done. That was the end of that particular lineup. Filthy Animal Taylor left. Brian Robertson didn't really want to go on and continue playing in Motorhead. A lot of people didn't like his fit for Motorhead, but I thought Another Perfect Day is a really good record, and it's okay. It's a little bit slower. It's a little bit more thoughtful, perhaps. But Brian Robertson is a thoughtful, slower guitar player. You know, that's why he was in Thin Lizzy. So I remember getting this record because it was a present, a surprise present. I think it was around about my birthday, and I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I'd not seen it before. I wasn't even aware that it was out, so it was bought pretty close to when it had been released, and it was a surprise, and it was a really nice surprise as well. So I'll always remember it for that. And I played this thing months and months, because there's just so much on there. So much on there. It's every song on here is, in my opinion, the definitive version of that song. If you've got this, you've basically got everything you need from Motorhead for the casual listener. I would also recommend highly Orgasmatron, the album Orgasmatron, which came out after this, with the brand new lineup, and then after that, Rock and Roll as well, which has got some very good moments, including a guest appearance from Michael Palin. Imagine that. So yeah, what else have you got on here? You've got, as well as the new songs, you have a classic, Dancing on Your Grave, which is absolutely superb. You have Emergency, which was done with Girls' School. You have another classic on there called No Class, which I always think is probably one of my favourite Motorhead songs once you get past the obvious choices. So how did this do when it came out? Well, the critics loved it. They said it was really comprehensive, really good selection, and they said basically, you've got that, you're a casual Motorhead fan, you don't need anything else. And they're kind of right. They're kind of right. I mean, once you get past rock and roll, which is I think 1987, something like that, late 80s anyway, once you get past that, you are then into obviously all the stuff from the 90s and the noughties, which to me has its moments but is not classic Motorhead. It just really isn't. I'm not that interested in that part of the band's history. Not really. It's okay for what it is, but it leaves me a little bit cold. I don't know why. Whether it's the lack of dynamic range because of these horrible cheap CDs that were pumped out by everybody in that period, who can say? So the critics loved it. One of the main reasons they loved it was the concise nature of the songs. One critic said it was 29 versions of the same thing, but it didn't matter because they were all brilliant, and he's kind of right. The public liked it too in Britain. It's a very British record, this. It only really sold any significant amounts in Britain. We put it to number 14 on the UK charts. There were a couple of classic television appearances to go and find on the old YouTube to promote this record. One on the music show The Tube, funnily enough, and it got to silver, a certification in the UK of silver, which is 60,000 copies. Now, that's not bad. It's not bad. There were other versions. There was a cardboard sleeve as well as the real leather one, which I haven't got. There was also a tape version that was brought out in a leather sleeve as well, which, again, that's probably a rarity because I've never seen that. So, have you heard this particular compilation by Motorhead? And isn't it absolutely sensational? It really delves into the history of the band. The liner notes on here as well are very comprehensive. A lot of them being written by Lemmy himself, so they're worth a good read as you're listening to, as your ears are bleeding. They're a good read. So that's Motorhead, No Remorse, from 1984.